come September. Anyway, that's my bold statement for this division. Moving on to the Cowboys, and I mean, we look at the Cowboys, and I think we spoke briefly about it previously offline, how they go and play the 49ers 2 years in a row in the playoffs, and both games have such crazy endings. The one the previous year where they couldn't get the snap off to spike the ball to kick the field goal, and then this year where they have Zeke Elliott essentially been the center and the final play of the game. But to me, that felt like a game in the playoffs that the Niners didn't play well. The Cowboys had their opportunities, and it just didn't materialize. And I think there's a sense from Cowboys fans, and speaking to some of the beat writers in which we've had on over the course of the last few months, that they feel they're very close. And I think it's kind of reflective of what they did. They didn't make any massive free agency signings, but they do go out and trade for Gilmore and they trade for Cooks, two players that you would expect with the experience they have to make an immediate impact. I'll go to you, Conor, first. Would you see that's a fair reflection that the Cowboys should feel like they're closer than other teams to be challenging the Eagles and maybe pushing on again?
Well, I was smiling when Colm said that the ceiling for the Giants was the divisional round, because the ceiling for the Cowboys obviously and infamously has been the divisional round. Is it 7 straight times that they've gone to the playoffs now and lost in the divisional round, which is an indictment of their coaching and their culture, frankly, because that should not be the ceiling for a team with this talent. I mean, if you swapped in Dayball for McCarthy, I think they make a Super Bowl run. Simple as. Like, they just... I mean, and you said it, when they end up with Zeke Elliott in for that crazy play last year, you just wonder, what are we doing here? Like, with all that you have around you, and dropping in Brandon Cooks in now into that wide receiver core, I think is probably just the addition they need. I mean, CeeDee Lamb more or less called for it the offseason, like, get us one more wide receiver, and that's going to do it for us on the offensive side of the ball. Felt a little bit sorry for Kellen Moore being the scapegoat for failures that I don't think were necessarily his. Dak just went really cold at exactly the wrong time last season as well. Like, it's not Kellen Moore's fault. He threw 2 bad picks in that game against the 49ers when, as you say, I think quite rightly, they weren't at their best and Dallas had a shot. The Cowboys weren't great on the road last year, though, funnily enough. Like, you weren't massively confident that they were going to roll in there and do a number on the 49ers, and they had an opportunity to do it as it went, but you just wonder, culturally, are they in the right place? We just finished talking about the Giants. Dayball seems to pretty much have them achieving at their potential. Cowboys, you'd say, are probably 10 or 15% off achieving what the potential in that team is. I mean, you just listen off the names on both sides of the ball, like just Pro Bowl talent or potential Pro Bowl talent pretty much everywhere you look. Like Eagles, 49ers, Cowboys, Bengals, Bills, got to be the most talented rosters in football, and the Cowboys arguably you could put on the top of that pile, but they're nowhere near achieving their ceiling. They have a very high ceiling, admittedly, but when it goes wrong, it goes badly wrong. They look like the Keystone Cops more than they look like CSI at times.
Colm, 2 players in which they lost from free agency, which they might go under the radar, and that's Dalton Schultz, who's gone to the Texans, and McGovern, who was a really marquee player on their offensive line, gone to the Bills. But yeah, everybody seems to just talk about these 2 particular trades. I mean, they kind of regress slightly in terms of some of the other players that have walked away that were really key to them. I know Nathan Van Der Esch has come back, and they brought the Fowler back, and it looks like Zeke might come back at some stage on a kind of reduced contract. Are we essentially going to run? Is it a run-it-back scenario?
I think in many ways it is, but what you said there in relation to Zeke encapsulates it, right? And if I'm to channel my inner Mark Cockrell and go with some Greek mythology, I think there are 2 that you can stand out, right? The legend of King Midas, where everything Midas touched turned to gold. And initially this was fantastic, and Midas was delighted, only for it to go horribly wrong when he touched family members and they turned to gold and were lost forever. And ultimately that was Jerry Jones, right? Jerry Jones takes over as the owner. Jimmy comes in. They are super successful. They decide to move on from Jimmy because Jerry wants more of the credit. And it's like the gods decided they were going to tantalize him, because they go and they win it, right? And Jerry, I have no doubt, thinks at that point, this is going to be easy peasy. I am set. I truly am King Midas in everything I touch. But he very quickly turned into Sisyphus, who is condemned for all eternity to push the rock up the hill only for it to roll back down again. And that is where Jerry is at. And that's where the Cowboys are at, because he cannot stay out of his own way. And there might be a curse involved there as well, because this week Jerry has once again said, no new inductees into the Cowboys Ring of Fame. So despite making a public promise on primetime television that he would induct Jimmy Johnson into the Cowboys Hall of Fame, he has once again backed away from that. And he is once again meddling in that he wants to bring back Zeke. Zeke has been the law of diminishing returns ever since that phenomenal first season. And Jerry just doesn't want to hear that. And that is the Cowboys' biggest issue. Jerry Jones. We can talk about the personnel, we can talk about the coaching, we can talk about schemes, we can talk about silly things that have gone wrong for them over the past couple of years. But it all, for me, boils down to one issue, and that is Jerry Jones. And I don't think they're going to see success until Jerry is no longer in charge.
Conor, the week of the draft, in which I think it was the draft presser, maybe 2 or 3 days out from that Thursday, and he jokingly made a comment about Mike McCarthy whilst he was sitting there about his play calling and his coaching towards the end of the season, and everybody kind of laughed in the room. But like, we had Jane Slater on the night of the draft, who does a great job for NFL Network on the Cowboys, and she said, once it was a bit tongue-in-cheek and everybody laughed, the point was being made that if it doesn't change next season. But again, what's changed for the Cowboys? You touched on it there. They get to the promised land in terms of the playoffs, just can't get over the line. Is McCarthy kind of in that kind of last chance saloon? Is it this year or bust? It has to be maybe
100%. And like this is the pattern. We see it all the time. First time the offensive coordinator gets fired or the defensive coordinator gets fired. Second time, it's your head that's on the block. It's the old write 2 letters thing. You can blame the other guy the first time around, but then you're done when it happens again. I say when, sorry, if. Don't want to be wish casting the Cowboys not to get to the promised land next year. What a terrible thing that would be to do just in June. It'll be an entertaining ride as it always is. But all the points that Colin has made about Jerry Jones absolutely tally with everything that we hear from inside and outside that camp year in, year out, that they just can't get out of their own way.
Even more entertaining during the season, Colin, when the Cowboys fans were sending us in comments during the live shows and they're blowing their mind over how many interceptions Dak Prescott has shown. It's look, they're always entertaining and it's always interesting to keep an eye on what the Cowboys do. We're going to